Welcome back to the Joyous Kingdom. I'm Cade. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the company that I think might be leading the charge for mass adoption of Web3 and NFTs. Everybody's got their choice of what company they think is going to lead, whether it's Nike, whether it's Disney, whether it's Adidas. You can tell by the title and thumbnail, my bet is the UFC. Now, before I defend my position, make sure you smash that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom. If you're watching this on Twitter, likes and retweets are the best way to support. Be sure to check me out on all platforms. As you know, the goal of this channel is to instill the knowledge and confidence it's going to take to navigate this metaverse on your own one day. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into this video. If you're an NFT project or a Web3 company, then you know that the days of mass marketing and botted followers are over. Projects with over 100,000 followers can't even mint out. That's because the meta has changed from quantity to quality. There have been VCs and private investors that have reached out to some of the projects that I've reviewed. You never know who is watching. My channel targets an older demographic, and that is on purpose. So what are you waiting for? Book a brutally honest review. Link in the description. Get started. JoyousKingdom.com. So why is the UFC for me going to be the best bet for who's going to lead us into mass adoption, even though they don't even have a project, right? It seems like everyone but the UFC has already come out with a collaboration or some kind of NFT project or something. Let me rewind the clocks about 10 years. 14-year-old Cade running around. If I told anyone that I was doing karate, I would have been bullied so fucking hard. Rewind the clocks 15, 20 years ago, it's even worse. I remember when I was in lower school passing karate places and wishing and praying that my parents didn't sign me up for it because I didn't want to get bullied. It looked like one of those things that dorks do. Then with the advent of social media, everyone was able to find their niche and community, and every community became cool if you found the right people, because within every single category is this own little hierarchy of like people who are popular or not popular and trying to be the top. And this created an open market in social norms and culture. Now we've seen plenty of metas, plenty of trends pass over the last few years. One thing that is undeniable is that story has become the most important thing, and story is personal branding. They've done such an excellent job at decentralizing the media, decentralizing the popularity, because each athlete is their own person, kind of. Yes, they're all under contract of the UFC, but they all have their own personal brands. They have their own side gigs, their side businesses. And so people develop a bond and a love to these athletes for their personal fights. Most people that watch the UFC or any kind of fighting only stick with a few fighters that they know of. And because of this, the UFC is the blanket term, but it's all the athletes and fighters that the people care about. I mean, let's just look at the UFC's Twitter page. By the way, 11 million fucking followers. Just their last tweet. Conor McGregor, perfect fucking example. The guy who turned everyone into a wannabe fighter, the prized possession of the UFC, Conor McGregor. An example of if you found him on his come up and you joined him for the ride, you're more than likely supporting him, sharing his stuff on social media, buying his fights, going to his fights even, develop a little sub-cult within the bigger cult, which is the UFC. And for current NFT projects, this value exchange happens in usually their Twitter spaces or their Discords. And if you want people to show up, there has to be an equal value exchange. They're giving you their time and their attention and money, so you gotta show up with something, because the UFC nails the entertainment factor with these massive fucking events, virtual or in person. It's high production value and it's worth the money. So think about if the UFC drops an NFT project that's a decentralized ecosystem with all the athletes being under contract. The buyers, the consumers, are going to choose based on which fighters they like. The fighters that are doing the hottest, that are in the news all the time, and then can back it up over the long term, those projects will look really good. It'll be an extra opportunity for these fighters to get a little bit more money, for the UFC to develop even more depth into their brand and into these athletes that are the reason the UFC is even here. And I don't know if you noticed, but on the UFC's YouTube channel, which by the way has 15 million subscribers, they've started to really go heavy. If you're a UFC fan, you know what I'm talking about. They've started to pour serious money and resources into the media coverage because they realize it's the people following these journeys that's giving them so much fucking heat and momentum and fire about the brand. And the fights are even that much better for it with these amazing promos they're putting out. People are getting so fucking hyped. They're really connecting with these fighters. They're showing a little bit of behind the scenes, their family, what they're going through, their training. We're even seeing the fighters have their own YouTube channels. Justin Gaethje, Sugar Sean O'Malley, Adesanya. Do you see where I'm getting at here with like the ability for the UFC, if they were to tap into Web3, with so many easy, like good incentives that they could implement for these people who are like hardcore UFC fighter supporters, which by the way, they've already started to mess with VR and the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg picked up MMA recently, so he's been kind of getting into it. And the UFC is no stranger to doing deals that are heavy into the media, heavily forward thinking. They've even signed with Prime Hydration as their #1 global sports drink of the UFC, a massive fucking risk because Prime Energy, put on by Logan Paul and KSI, is very fucking new. It's very new, and Prime Energy's reputation is also built on Logan Paul and KSI, so it's an ultra risk from the UFC. But Dana White does not give a fuck, dude, because he also knows if Prime Energy goes under, the UFC is big enough and decentralized enough that the UFC will still be fine. If a fighter does something horrible, the UFC is still fine. If Dana White punches his fucking wife, the UFC is still going to be fine 2 weeks later. It's one of those things that when you've built a decentralized machine in the way that UFC has been built, it seems like the UFC is made perfectly for Web3. On their Instagram with 36 million followers, each one featuring different athletes, building the brand, getting people hyped, reminding people about fights, showing behind the scenes stuff with the fighters with their families. If they had an NFT project, bro, the floor would be like 40 ETH or something. It'd be crazy. Let's also not forget about the people that cover the UFC. The UFC has an entire industry on its own. We have people like Ariel Helwani, right? He's got his own YouTube channel with like 1 million followers. He does all these interviews. The UFC gets free media coverage because everybody wins. And when you've built out a decentralized ecosystem the way that it's been built, this is like Rug Radio on steroids on steroids. Anyways, I feel like I rambled a little bit and I kind of went in like 100 different directions in this video. My main point here is with the UFC, they've got a really good opportunity here to pretty much probably be the #1 brand here in NFTs if they just dropped one. And if anyone in the UFC who works for the UFC or a fighter or anything and you're interested in Web3, please hit me up. And before I finish up, I also wanted to draw attention to the fact that, like, look, it's probably not good that we're attaching a capitalistic little mindset to everything where it's like, okay, every fighter has their own, floor price. Every single fighter has all this pressure now of, like, obviously winning the fight and winning the fans, but now also maintaining a floor price. And if it starts to go down, but they're still winning fights, it's like, well, I don't know what to do here. Like, I don't know. Do I need to have more hype? Like, will Colby Covington, who's drawn up so much anger and resentment and polarity between the fighters, will he have a high floor price or will it be bad? And I'm not here to argue whether or not we should or shouldn't have it. I'm here to tell you it's happening either way. Think about who's literally running the UFC. It's Dana White, fam. Best friends with Donald Trump. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna happen. The UFC is probably gonna be one of the biggest brands that leads into the metaverse and into the Web3 world. The stuff they're doing with VR, virtual experiences, they're pouring a lot of fucking money in there. We're partnering with Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. It's gonna be a crazy next couple years. Let me know which UFC fighter would have the highest fucking floor price down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, if you think I missed something, if there's a point that you want to refute or whatever, please let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash the like button for me, subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom. If you're on Twitter, likes and retweets are the best way to support. Make sure you find me on all your social medias. Links are down below in the description. If you want to see more of me right now, click on one of these boxes on the side of me. Until next time, continue on your voyage, continue to learn, and be grateful you're alive watching this video. Bye.